Welcome to my video series of Database Management System. In this video, you will be learning about ER model, Entity Relationship Model or Entity Relationship Diagram in Database Management System. Total, I have 4 videos or the 4 lectures on ER model. This is my first lecture. In this first lecture, you will be learning about what is an ER diagram or what is ER model. Why we need ER diagram or ER model in Database Management System. What are the different shapes we will be using for creation of a diagram, that is ER diagram in database management system, that is geometrical shapes in ER diagram with the help of an example. I request you, please stay tuned till the end of my video. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share this video. Thank you. In this video of ER model, I will be training you how to create an ER model or a diagram of a given situation of a database. So in this, let's consider whenever we create a table in database directly and do the designing work without any modeling tool or language, then database will face many issues, problems when it comes to any update in the design of a table. So that's the reason we use ER model or ER diagram. I will be explaining you this with the help of an example. Let's see why we need the ER model. Why we need the ER model in database management system. So to explain this, I will be taking in help of an student table. Let's consider I have created a student table in some database, student database. So without having an ER model, what ER model will do? ER model will give the blueprint as we create the blueprint or the architecture on the paper before constructing any house. So the architecture will be called as a blueprint to create any house, physical house. After creation of the house, you cannot make the changes. So on the map, on the blueprint, you can make the changes, which room will be coming at which location, where will be the hall, where will be the balconies, will be the gate, where will be the parking, each and everything you are going to design on the paper. Once the design is done, you are going to go ahead with the construction part. So ER model is going to give us the blueprint of a database. Once the blueprint is ready, we can go ahead with the creation of the table. So let's consider this student table. What I have created is on the screen is created without using ER model approach, so as you can see the different fields here in the table: student roll number, student name, and marks in various subjects like mathematics, physics, computers, and English. So in this table, primary key is student roll number. So I have created this table. After creation of this table, a requirement comes that an email address should be added to this table. An email address should be added to this table. Is it possible after creation? No, because this table has not created with ER model. So I cannot create, I cannot insert this. So this is a problem. So let's see how our ER model will look. So let's consider the same thing. Student, okay, student table. I have this is an student entity. In tables, it will be called as student table. In ER model, student will be called here as an entity. With respect to this entity, I have a roll number, I have a student name, I have an email address, subject as mathematics, physics, computers, and English. All these are the different fields of this student table. So student is an entity, whereas roll number, student name, email address, and subjects mathematics, physics, computers, and English are the attributes of this entity student. So these are my column names or field names or attributes. Coming to column names or the field names, we will be calling them when we are having a table. So whenever we are going to have this entity relationship model, we are going to call all the column names with the attribute. As an attribute, we are going to call them. whereas table name is a student. So student is an entity and their attributes are the column names. So let's see this more in detail. So as we know, this is a table name or the entity. Let's consider our same problem. If I want to have many more columns in my conceptual model, that is blueprint. So how can I get this? So simply I have to add a different attributes to my existing entity. Easily I can add. So in this way I can add the different attributes. Whereas in the physical table I cannot go ahead with that. So this student entity attribute or entity relationship diagram will help us to create more and more in detail conceptual model related to any entity. So that's the reason we need the ER model. Why we need an ER diagram? ER model. ER model helps you to define terms related to entity relationship modeling, provides a preview of how all your tables should connect, what fields are going to be on each table. What does it mean? I will be having a specific table. As you can see, a student table I have created. On that student table, what are the different fields? On the different fields, whenever I want to add a new field, I can add a field that is nothing but an attribute I can add to an entity. So adding and subtracting of entities in a ER model is very easy because it's a blueprint, as well as you can show how different tables are connected. So ER model helps to describe entities, attributes, and their relationship. So whenever we are going to consider any entity, we can have its attributes and how this entity is in relationship with other entities. So what is an entity? What is an attribute? What is relationship? In detail, I will be telling you in that video. So as ER model is a blueprint, they are transferable into relational tables which allow us to build database quickly. So as we know, we have this ER diagrams. These ER diagrams will be behaving as a blueprint. This blueprint, we can transfer the entire blueprint of this diagram into relational tables and we can create the database more quickly. So all these are logical. The database designers gains a better understanding of the information to be contained in the database. If we have the ER model with us, the database designer who is going to create the design of a database, they will be gaining more information or understanding the database design more easily and quickly. Let's see what is an ER model or what is an ER diagram. Both are same. ER model. ER model stands for Entity Relationship Model. Entity Relationship Model. Entity is an real world object relationship, how the real world objects are having a relationship among themselves in a database. So this model is used to define the data elements and their relationship for a specific system. For example, I have a company of some production. I have some production company. So in that production company, I will be having different departments on the different data elements. So how these data elements will be communicating among themselves will be specified in our database model. The ER model defines the conceptual view or design or blueprint of a database. Conceptual view or design or blueprint. It means that before creation of a database, before creation of a database, we'll be having how the database look like, how the database look like, how the different elements of a database will be communicating. So in detail, the ER model will define everything, how our data elements will be having a relationship. So it is a high level data model. ER model is a high level data model used to model logical view of the system from data perspective. From data perspective, what is a data perspective? How the data should be visible, how the data should be visible, how the data should be communicating, how the data will be communicating with other data. So it's a high level data model purely based upon data perspective, having below components. What are these components? Entity is one component, entity type is one component, and entity set. So in detail I will be telling about what is an entity, what is an entity type, what are entity sets. So in ER modeling, database structure is portrayed as a diagram called entity relationship diagram. Whenever we are going to create a ER model conceptual view, it's nothing but a diagram. So that diagram is going to portray the basic structure, how our database look like, how our database look like. An entity relationship model, that is ER model, describes the structure of a database with the help of a diagram which is known as relationship diagram, that is ER diagram. ER modeling helps you to analyze data requirement systematically to produce well designed database. So without ER modeling, we cannot create a database. It will help us to analyze the data requirement systematically, to analyze the data requirement systematically, and based upon our analysis we can produce well designed database as per the requirement. So let's see this example of ER diagram. Let's consider I have a table, student table. So physical table, I have a student table wherein I have columns or the field names such as student roll number, student name, and its phone number. Let's consider I have another table college where I have the fields such as college code, college address, and a phone number. Now, how these two tables are in relation? As we know, students will enroll into the college, will enroll into the college for to learn some course. So, we can say student studies in college. We can say student studies in college. So, studies will be the relationship between student table and college table. So, this is an table representation. Let's consider the same thing with our ER model representation, diagrammatical representation. Student table. So here student table will be called as student entity in relationship model, that is ER model. So student is an entity having the attributes student roll number, student name, and student phone number. So all these are attributes of our student entity. And I have a college entity. The attributes of college entity is college code, college address, and college phone number. All these are its college entity attributes. So this is my student entity and college entity. In the above, you can see student table and college table. So in ER diagram, we'll be having entities. So student entity and college entity. So student entity having its own attributes, college entity is having its own attributes. Now what is the relationship? The relationship is student is going to study in college. Student studies in the college. So studies will be the relationship between student and college. So this is a basic example of our ER diagram. Let's see geometric shapes in ER diagram. What are the different shapes we'll be using for creating an ER diagram? First we have this rectangle. So it is going to represent the entity set. Whenever we are going to see an rectangle in an ER model, it is going to represent an entity. So rectangle represents entity sets. Next we have the shape eclipse. Attributes, it is going to represent an attributes. It's nothing but our all shape. Next we have the diamond, which is going to show us the relationship set. Whenever we are going to have the diamond in between entities, it is going to show the relationship between entities or entity sets. Next we have this lines. So they link attributes to entity sets and entity sets to relationship set. Next we have the double eclipse. Next we have the double eclipse. It is a multi-valued attribute. Single eclipse if you have, it's a simply attribute. If you have double, it is a multi-valued attribute. Next we have the dash eclipse. It is a derived attribute. It is a derived attribute. What's a derived attribute? I will be telling you in detail about this attribute in coming slides. Next we have double rectangles. Next we have double rectangles. Whenever we see a double rectangle in our ER diagram, it's a weak entity. Double rectangle represents a weak entity set. Next we have double lines. Next we have double lines. It is going to represent total participation of an entity in a relationship set. How many different entities will be having in a participation of an relationship will be shown with the help of double lines. Let's see the quick recap of this video lecture 1. What is an EM model? EM model defines the conceptual view or the design or the blueprint of the database. It means it is going to give the blueprint or the architecture before creation of a database. That particular blueprint will give the complete information how the physical database will look like. So here we will be having three things in EM model: entity, attribute and relationship. As I have already discussed in the example, what are entities? And in the example I have shown you, student is one entity and college is one entity. So what are entities? Student and college. So entity is a real world thing or object which can easily be identified like a person, place or concept. Next we have the attribute. So what are attributes? So here in the example, attributes for the student entity are student roll number, student name, phone number. So all these are attributes of student entity. Coming to college, college attributes are college phone number, college code, address. So all these are college attributes. So these attributes are nothing but the characteristics of respective entities. So what is an attribute? So let's see, attributes are the descriptive properties which are owned by each entity of an entity set. So each entity set is having its own, entity is having its own attribute in an entity set. Next we have the relationship. So what's the relationship? How this student and college are related, are in association with a entity relationship, that is studies. So what is the relationship? The association among entities is called relationship. Is called relationship. In coming video session, you will be learning more about ER model. Thank you. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share my video. Thank you.